One of the things that I've been dealing a lot lately with the founders and CEOs that I'm working with is what I call paralysis by indecision. Now, I think a lot of people, when they think about what I'm about to talk about, they use the nomenclature paralysis by analysis. It's the same concept, but the reason why I push back on the paralysis by analysis is I don't think that's the actual problem. The problem isn't that they continue to analyze over and over again. The real root of the problem is the fact that they're unwilling or unable to make a decision. And so to cover up the fact that they're unable to make a decision, they keep the analysis going, right? And you understand what I'm saying? Like, one is the continual analysis is a symptom of the problem of not being able to make a decision. And this happens for a number of ways, right? Sometimes, especially in operations, right? That's my field, is coming in helping organizations with operations. A lot of times it's with an organization that has the lowest person on the totem pole or someone not really experienced in operations doing X, Y, and Z, and they just don't have the confidence to do it. And sometimes it's a senior level person, right? I've worked for startups and small businesses where, someone who reached a certain level in the organization or came as a partner to a business. And so they got the role of COO, having never done a lot of the internal operational functions that come along with the COO role. Overseeing accounting, overseeing finance, overseeing legal, HR, et cetera. And when you throw someone in the deep end of the pool, they tend to get flustered, right? They tend to not be willing or able to make the decisions they need to make. One of the greatest examples I can give is payroll platforms, HRS systems. What you use to pay your employees, manage your benefits, manage your PTO. For whatever reason, this is one of the hardest decisions that a lot of people have to make. And part of the reason why they have a problem is people are always afraid to make a mistake. Now, here's a secret I'll lay on you. That's it. There is no right answer. When you come to so many of these things, especially with choosing what platform and software to use, there is no right decision. There might be maybe what's the most right or the best at the time. But if you take 3 payroll platforms and you take 20 people who have used all 3, you're gonna have a third who love one and hate the other 2, and vice versa. Everyone's gonna have a different opinion because they all have different experiences with customer service, what they wanted out of the process, right? So people get bogged down in this notion of I have to make the right decision, I can't get this wrong, when reality is as subjective as it comes. So again, these leaders kind of fall in this trap of making sure they get the right answer when there's not even really possible. And so they just create this overanalysis. Let's review one more. Let's review one more. Let's go back and review what we reviewed. Let's do another call. Let's bring more people into the call. I'm actually having this right now with a accounting software, with accounts payable software for a startup I'm working on. It's just one thing after the next. And I finally had to push the founder, look, we have got to make a decision. There's no more data to bring in. Which brings me to kind of my next point, like how do you know when you have enough information? And one thing I've been very, very good about throughout my career, even early on, when I was just starting out in operations, learning how things go, how things work, how things function, is using my resources at my disposal. Now, when I say resources, I don't mean money. I mean the people, the knowledge, who I can tap into, my accountants, my lawyers, my insurance broker, colleagues, friends, whatever it is, family members who may be accountants and lawyers, et cetera. I found ways to tap into all of the resources around me, which allowed me to gather all the information I needed to make a sound decision. I'll never forget, I was COO of an organization, and the accountant, the CPA that worked for me, we were tossing around some ideas. We had to make a decision about this, and he brought in a new piece of information that I hadn't thought about, hadn't heard yet, and I said, that was the deciding piece for me. So I made a quick decision based on what you said, we're going this route. He's like, man, it is so, he didn't say man, he's older, but he said it's so great to work with someone so decisive that you heard the piece of information that you needed to close this deal and move on, so we all could just move on, right? And too many people get bogged down again in that process, that analysis process, that don't allow them to do that. So remember to always utilize the resources you have around you. And here's another great tip. I love using vendors against each other. Now, I may not give each one the other one's proposal so they see the dollar amount, but if I'm betting 3 vendors on some kind of software, and they're going to tell me the 3 reasons why they're great, I'm going to say, hey, look, I'm also vetting these 2 others. Why are you better? Then I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to get a 360 view of each one of those software pieces and have the most information possible by not just tapping into my knowledge, my experience, how I view things, but really tapping into people who live those software systems and help organizations more than just me and mine every single day. And it's a great way to get that additional information to really kind of round out what you're trying to, the information you have, the data you're collecting to make a sound decision. You know, a big part of collecting all this data is also learning to ask the right questions. And that's where, again, kind of going back to the very beginning here of where people run into a problem is that they don't know the questions to ask. You know, so if, you know, again, a client of mine, without my knowledge, decided a rising operations person didn't consult me and launched a new payroll platform. And it immediately blew up in her face. And the reason is because she was looking at, is it cheap? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Without thinking about or even knowing to ask all the different pieces that come into play. You know, when I'm launching a payroll platform, I'm looking at, does it sync with all my other software? Does it sync with the benefits? Does it make the administration of the payroll and the benefits easy and streamlined? So yeah, you might pay a little bit more on the software piece, but you're saving 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a month from your staff and your personnel, which greatly covers the cost. So learning to ask questions. If you don't know the right questions to ask, bring an expert, bring in a consultant, tap them in, have them help you in this process to ask the right questions, to vet these processes, vet these procedures, so you don't fall in the trap of paralysis by indecision and are able to make a sound decision.